So, in this week's Creative Confidence Catch Up, I'm going to be chatting with Karen. So, Karen, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh goodness, I better not take too long.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I'm a former teacher, assistant head teacher for about 20 years, and always been quite creative, I think. I started writing about 12 years ago. My journey's been fairly convoluted. And so now I am a writing mentor and publisher, and I've written about 14 books of my own. But I also have a real passion for sustainability and the environment. I did a master's in environmental conservation whilst I was teaching about, that must be like nearly 10 years ago. I don't know. I'm scared to say how long ago it was. So I've got a few passions, but I would say my main passions are education, really, mental health, and writing. And I spent quite a long few years after I left teaching, working for a water company, teaching young people about water conservation and looking after the environment and all that goes with it. So, in a nutshell, that's me.
I know, I love that. And in a way, I like the fact that you brought it up about the water conservation and things because this was when we first like chatted on LinkedIn, wasn't it? And
Oh,
because I'm a strong believer of sustainability in all different forms, but obviously in terms of environmental, this is like really important. So we actually had a discussion, like was it 1 or 2 years ago now? And we spoke about it, would have been, wouldn't it?
it's got to be. It's at least 2 years for sure.
Yeah, and we spoke about it, and then since then we've connected on LinkedIn, haven't we? Or we've
Yeah,
been remained connected on LinkedIn, and then
yeah,
since
yeah.
then you've been doing all these other things. So I thought I'd invite you back. So it's really cool how things have gone kind of full
Yeah,
circle
yeah,
for you.
yeah, yeah. I've been yeah, sometimes you kind of you get led down a path. If you don't force things, the path will
Yeah.
naturally open up. And so a lot of my work, I mean, I mentor people to write and to publish their books, of course, but I also work with a lot of children's activity providers, and a lot of them I sort of
Wow.
advise them on curriculum writing. It's still writing, but it's using my education and the writing in tandem. So it's kind of become this beautiful, weird kind of hybrid.
I love it. No, but
Yeah,
sometimes that forms like all of these little stories and all these little things that you've done. It forms part of your story, doesn't it? So it
it
makes
does.
it even more exciting and
Yeah,
individual
it
to
does.
you.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. So I'm very happy and I'm very blessed. And I think I started Mabel and Stanley Publishing. I'd mentored about five new writers during lockdown, I think in the year 2021. And by the end of 21, they were all ready to publish and didn't know how to do it. So I set up Mabel and Stanley Publishing at the end of 2021. And I think I've published 35 authors now. So it's
Wow.
just gone a
Wow.
bit bonkers. Yeah.
I think then this would be a really interesting question to ask. So, do you have like maybe a story around like what made you feel confident enough to write books in the first place? Because obviously, I know your background's in education and things like that. What made you want to write books in the first place? Like,
No,
was it the confidence?
no, well, it was almost by accident. That's how weird it was. I
Right.
mean, I've always been a reader anyway, and ever
Mhm.
since I was a little girl, I used to, catalogue my library books on the shelf as a bit of a Matilda. So I've always had a real passion for books. And then as I grew older, I've always read and read and read. I've just, and obviously as a teacher, very passionate about literacy and writing in various forms, but not just writing, like the creative process behind writing. I think that's a whole conversation for another day, inclusion and all that kind of stuff. So I'd always been really passionate about the power of writing, the power of books, the power
Mm.
of storytelling, always. And I'd sort of, now and again people say to me, well, can you write me a poem for my wedding? Or, I'd always done that, but never really thought about it. And then this is how weird my life is. Well, Lemony Snicket, a series of unfortunate events.
Mhm.
Not unfortunate, but it's like it seems to be all these weird events that come together. So before I became a teacher, I was a hairdresser. Weirdly, left
Mhm.
school and just did that because my mum, God bless her, was rubbish at doing hair. So I went to hairdressing college to learn how to do hair. And I then, because of my like creative side, I started doing people's hair even while I was teaching, just because I really enjoyed it. It was something really creative. I'm a real people person. I'm a massive, people watcher. I'm really interested in people and I like meeting people. So I did it more for pleasure,
Mhm.
really, even though I didn't do it as a career anymore. And how it became was it sort of became I just went out to people's houses who um, and I didn't do like 1 or 2 a month or something like that. It wasn't really a job. But people, like I had a lady who had lost her husband, or a lady who was quite disabled. So it was more like care in the community really than it was
Yeah.
anything else. And weirdly, my husband always said to me, he'd say, "Oh, whose hair are you doing tonight?" And I'd say, "Oh, Jean." And he'd go, "Well, I don't know who Jean is." And I'd say, Jean, her husband ran off with the bloke, down, and he'd go, "Oh," and still didn't know who Jean was, if you know what I mean. So I used to give the people I was going to this weird, like funny sort of names that described where they lived, or, what they did. Anyway, I gave a name to him for this particular lady, and it's not the exact title, but there were what should we say, connections between the title. So I said whose hair I was going to do, and he said, "Oh my God, Karen," he went, "That's a brilliant title for a book." And I went, "Do you know what? That is a great title
Mm.
for a book." I said, "I think I'm going to write that." And I just did. And
Wow.
the book eventually was called The One-Legged Lady from Balmoral Road. I'll let you make your own assumptions. But
Huh.
it's not really about her, but it was about a mobile hairdresser. Because I write a lot of what they call women's fiction, sort of
Mhm.
satirical, real lifey kind of stuff. So I wrote about this woman, and the mobile hairdresser was visiting, and all the stories that she had were sort of some stories that I'd collected, some things that I'd watched, some were completely from my imagination. And I wrote that book in 3 months. That was the first book I ever wrote, by writing on a Sunday whilst I was teaching. Yeah, and that's like just over 12 years ago, and I've written 14 now. So yeah, it's the weirdest story. It just started like that.
That,
But I think
yeah.
maybe it had been simmering. I don't know. I don't know.
Sometimes I totally get what you're on about.
Yeah,
And also, what's quite nice is that when you were talking about these stories, you can see the enthusiasm and the energy because it's making you excited. And I feel that obviously, as a maybe from a teacher point of view, that's really
mm,
important because if kids are going to learn, then
yeah,
surely, like,
yeah,
if a kid's going to learn, it's got to be fun, it's got to be exciting, it's got to keep their attention
yeah,
span. So for
yeah,
the fact that you've been obviously working like as a if you were working as a teacher, I can see
yeah.
how those two things really intermix. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And I was always quite the creative teacher. One of the reasons I don't teach anymore, sadly, is because I was always getting in trouble for not doing what I was supposed to be doing. Because I was always
You're
the
having
one,
too
"Come on,
much fun.
let's go outside and collect some leaves, or let's go and, just do some stuff for the sheer hell of it, and, see what learning comes out of it." I'm
Mm,
I'm kind of quite a bit of a maverick, I think. But also I think because I'm creative, I love the creativity, and I'm really passionate about that. And I'm really passionate about, one size doesn't fit all. And
no.
unfortunately, our education system is becoming a little bit like that. It's becoming a sort of a data collection exercise. It's becoming a little bit rigid. And for some children who maybe don't fit the mold, which is probably me
Yeah,
in my
I
inner
feel, yeah,
child,
me too.
yeah, and when I was doing when I was working for the water company, I used to go out to schools. That was initially, I sort of came out of teaching and went into that. And I used to do loads of river dipping and stuff like that. So, and I was never happier wading up the river, loads of kids looking for fish and crusted. So for me, whatever you do in life, and you look at all of like the big thinkers, the Richard Bransons and the
Mm,
Alan Sugars and all of that, those are creative people, aren't they? And
yeah.
they find creative solutions to things that aren't necessarily the norm. So I think that's why maybe my journey has gone the way it has, and because probably of the way I am, and I'm kind of a bit of a, do you know what, give it a go, what's the worst that can happen type of person.
And also, it's finding yourself through the process, isn't it? Because like
Yeah,
I have found like over the years you find bits and parts of what you're about and who you are
yeah,
trying to align, but then it's only until all these little different things come together and like boom, actually
yeah,
it's a light bulb moment because
yeah,
this is who I am, this is what
yeah,
I'm about, and then everything else then spans off. So you kind of have to like funnel it out and then you go back out. It's like, so
yeah.
it's a bit like a, I don't know, like a sand timer thing.
It's a bit, it is a bit. And I think that's the beauty of working for yourself. And usually, like entrepreneurial people are quite creative,
Yeah.
or they've got that little something in them, haven't they? Yourself as well, you're a very creative person. But what's lovely about that is that you're absolutely able to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
You're, like you say, you're able to take all of the little bits of you that make you what you are, and
Hmm.
make the best use, which is what we don't do with kids
I
nowadays so
totally
much.
agree. Hmm.
Like, who do we revere in society? We revere musicians, artists, you know, storytellers, and yet in school it's very much you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and all of those little souls who've got all that wonderful stuff inside, which actually could lead them down a better path rather than just, you know, I mean,
Expectations
yeah,
of who they should be. Yeah.
and I think them, and that isn't that really the secret to a happy life, to
Yeah.
do things that bring you pleasure, that are purposeful, that give you that fulfillment. Have you heard of Ikigai?
Yes, always go by that. That's so
Yeah,
basically from that, it's funny you say it. So one of my coaches, and we were talking about like social media and things like that. And one of the things which was really important was to kind of own in on this, because it's like what you're passionate about, how you can make a living, and all of this is all tied together. And if we don't have that and we don't have a purpose or a why around that, then everything else just falls apart. That's the center of everything. So
it is.
that's great
Yeah.
you brought it up.
Find something that serves the world, find
Mm,
something you can make money from, and something that brings you pleasure. That's
yeah.
essentially three bits of Ikigai, which is obviously it's Japanese. Probably
Yeah,
wouldn't
I love
understand it by the name.
Japanese philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, but it's so ridiculously simple. But how many people? And do you know what? I'm a realist. We all have to pay the bills, don't we? And life is sometimes about doing things that you don't necessarily want to do.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you make a few sacrifices, when you get to the prize, you feel better anyway because you've
Yeah.
had to, you know, work for it. So I'm not someone who believes that you can you spend your whole life only doing the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd never do hoovering. Yeah. But if you can find that balance between what brings you pleasure, what serves others, and what fulfills you, I mean, that's the secret, isn't it? That's
Mm.
the
Mhm.
ultimate, really, I guess.
And having that like why around what you do. So like
Yeah,
I always find a lot of my, I don't know, when I talk about it, it's a lot to do with like sustainability in
yeah,
relation to health and sustaining the environment and things, which obviously what our last chat was about a
yeah,
few years ago. But yeah, when it's a case of sustaining ourselves through that creative process, and
mm,
from that everything that else spans off. So it's knowing why, and it's a lot for me, it's like that health sort of well-being bit, and
yeah,
then yeah, everything literally spans off
yeah,
it. And you
yeah.
wouldn't think it would be so simple, but then it actually is when you don't overthink it.
Yeah, it's blindingly obvious.
Mm.
And actually, that's interesting you should say that because, you know, like there is this kind of, oh, you know, people, environmental kind of
Mm.
activists, they're all a little bit right on and they're
Yeah.
always, you know, campaigning and they've always got a bit of an
Yeah.
axe to grind. But actually, it's not about that, is it?
No.
It's about, you know, I'm a huge believer as well. I believe everything comes from a place of kindness. If
Yeah.
you know, if I go into schools now, I say to them, I have two rules. One, that we're kind to each other, and two, that we have good manners. We're polite and
Yeah,
respectful. If you
definitely.
do those two things, everything else is okay. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't, because people, one of them will say to me, "Oh yeah, but what if I do this, miss?" And I say, "Well, is it kind?" And they go, "Yeah." So it's right then.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
unkind?
yeah.
Don't do it. You know, and it's the same. It's the same for everything, isn't it? If you're kind to your surroundings, if you're kind to the people around you, if you're kind to yourself,
Yeah.
if you know, and that means pursuing things that bring you pleasure, being respectful of others, being respectful of your environment. It's like it's obvious. And also the pay, you know, there's a price for everything in life, I
Mhm.
believe. You know, whether it's a Mars bar or a decision, there's always a price to pay. But the price for doing something good is that you get much more in return.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it is obvious, I think, but it's not easy. I think that's the
Yeah.
difference. It's obvious, but it's not always easy. I think
It's
maybe
like
that,
it's like
yeah,
with all these different things, it's like trying to find yourself amongst everything and then
yeah,
dwindling it down. And then once you've got those things, what do you do with it? And I think
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
the issue with a lot of
yeah,
people. They think it's and this is the other thing, like instant gratification. People want to be known for something and this, that, and the other. But then when it comes to it, it's like, what do they do with that instant gratification?
yeah,
There's a lot more than just kind of being known for something.
yeah.
It's got to be much more purposeful, because if it's not, then it's never going to last, is it? And it's
No,
never going to
it's
sustain
empty.
itself.
Yeah, it's just empty.
Mhm.
And you know, sometimes I think you're right to say that as well. Sometimes, and I talk to kids a lot about this all the time, and you know, the rewards aren't always monetary. You know,
No.
you know, when we talk about, and I think there's a lot more talk around this nowadays, which is a really good
Good.
thing
Mm.
about, you know, what success means. you know, and success means something really different to every single person, rightly
Mhm.
so.
Totally get
And
it.
success isn't about money. I mean, obviously, nobody really wants to live on a street corner and not have food in their belly and a nice bed. You know, there is a level that you need to maintain in order to kind of give yourself
Mm.
your, you know, if you think about Maslow, you know, your physiological needs and all the rest of it.
That's
But
another
success,
thing I've been looking at as well. Yeah,
I
it's like,
know, I know.
mm, yeah.
Every course you go on, they roll out the Maslow's triangle. But that's what it's about. It's about finding what success looks like to you. Yes, you've got basic needs that you have to fill. Yes, you've got bills to
Mm.
pay. Yes, you've got things that you've got to have. But also, it's about understanding, you know, and not pitching yourself. I think we live in a
Yeah.
world with social media where we're always comparing ourselves to other people. And there's no way. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare yourself to another person who's got completely different family setup, different wants, desires, fears,
Mm.
you know, strengths, weaknesses. You know, it's about finding what is your inner success. And I don't, without being patronizing, for me certainly, as I've got older, I've 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 sort of realized even more that actually, for me, the only thing that matters in my life is the people, really, and all the other stuff is just like the frosting. You know
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what
Just
I
the
mean?
little
Yeah,
sprinkly
yeah,
bits.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you sat in a room and said, right, I can I can only keep. I think there was a thing like if you you know, like desert island stuff, you know, you can only take three things with you,
Yeah.
or if you had to rescue three things from your life. When I actually sat and thought about it, I thought there is literally nothing in my life that I absolutely have to have apart from the people.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
really, you know, and I love a bit of shopping, don't get me wrong, I'm a consumer. Love a nice glass of wine, you know, I like all of that, but it's not really
Totally get you.
it, is it, you
Yeah.
know? I think for me anyway, but
Yeah. I
yeah.
to I totally get so also, my other question that I've got then, so in terms of community then, we've been talking a lot about obviously, you as a teacher, you've got your
Mm.
community of kids and all that sort of stuff. Is there at the moment, is there a favourite digital platform, for building a community that you have at the moment? Do you think LinkedIn's a good one? 'Cause it certainly is for
Um,
me at the moment. I love it. I love the platform.
well, yeah, I really wasn't a
Mhm.
huge fan of LinkedIn, mainly because I didn't really understand it. And
Yeah.
you know what it's like, you're spinning all the plates, you're trying to be on TikTok and
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, and blah, blah, blah. And I've done quite a lot of learning on sort of social media and tried
Yeah.
to upskill myself because I was a bit of a dinosaur, I've got to be honest. And recently, I would say in the last few months, I've started to use LinkedIn a lot more. And I really like it. I think the thing is, you need to find the platform that suits you. So you need to find where your
Definitely.
audience is hanging out. So it might be, for some people, Instagram is the platform where your audience are. But certainly, I think more for B2B, you know, looking for other business people and
Yeah.
connections, LinkedIn's amazing. And don't get me wrong, I love Facebook, I love Insta, and I'm on both of those. And I've got a fair few kind of leads on TikTok actually.
Oh, wow.
But Instagram is more, it feels a little bit more grown up. And also it's less of the here's what I had for dinner last night,
Yeah,
or
true.
you know,
Yeah.
which is nothing wrong with that
Daily
because
diary of the
yeah, yeah,
food.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, or I'm feeling a bit sad today. It's less of
Yeah.
that, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
I'm not poo-pooing that. But from a purely business point of view, and if you're looking to make connections and expand your network, and grow and kind of find people to work with and spread your message,
Yeah.
and because there is a kind of an etiquette on LinkedIn that you would sort of get berated if you started trying to put, you know, people will put kind of personal stuff on there, but
Yeah.
it's always kind of linked to a business message,
Yes.
or it's linked to some inspiration, or it's
Mhm.
linked to something that they've learned. So it's accepted that actually that's what that's for. It's not for you just posting, you know, freely
Yeah.
pictures of your dinner. Um, and if you use it properly, quite powerful. I've had some really good conversations with people on LinkedIn and made some really good connections. So I think, but I think it's like anything, you've got to dedicate time to it. I go
Oh,
on it
yeah.
every day and I have a look. Well, it's how I kind of reconnect with you. I look at who I've connected with, who I've maybe not spoken to for a little while, look at potential connections that I can make, have conversations. And I think the other thing for me, really important, don't be too pushy. Because some
No.
people, there's nothing like someone, a couple of times they drop into your DMs and say, I'm so and so, I offer this, are you interested? I instantly go, no.
I'd be
I go,
like,
yeah,
well, if you don't know, then obviously you don't know
yeah,
enough about me. There you
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Or at least make the effort to say, oh, where are
Yeah.
you from? Or, what you doing
Yeah.
at the moment
Form
and
that
what,
conversation, get new
yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah. So I think there's some etiquette around it. But yeah, LinkedIn I'm finding very useful at the
Yeah.
moment. Mm.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then in terms of like creativity then, best piece of work so far. That could be your writing stuff, that could be anything creative that you're up to at the moment.
Goodness me.
Mhm.
I mean, my job is when I help other people, I'm sort of helping them with their creativity. So it's
Mm.
almost creativity by proxy a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sort of helping them to feel their creativity and to bring out books that are worthy of them. And
Yes.
I've had a couple of authors lately get bestseller status, which is really
Wow.
fabulous. I'm loving that. I did the year before last something I wrote. I wrote a book called 1 Year at the Dog and Duck,
Okay.
and I loved writing that. I haven't done anything probably I didn't write at all really last year because I was so busy helping other people. But in 2022, I wrote 1 Year at the Dog and Duck, and I wrote it in episodes. So
Oh,
I wrote
cool.
New Year, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and I wrote and released them in real time. So I
Oh,
wrote
wow.
5 in the course of the year. I don't actually know how I managed it, to be fair. How I
Mm.
got it done. But yeah, I loved doing that, and I got really nice reviews for the book, and it was really nice. That was probably personally my most creative thing that I've done
That's
recently. But now I'm sort of been so busy helping other people. But I'm hoping that once I've got a few more people coming out, and then I'm going to take maybe a few weeks off and start on my next novel. But yeah, I love
that's
writing.
so
But
cool.
yeah, but it's time consuming, so it kind of is a bit all encompassing. When I'm doing that, I find it hard to do anything else.
Mm. Oh, also, I could imagine like I don't know if you've ever thought about it before, but like how you on about you said you'd done it like over like it was like episodes sort of thing. Have you
Mm.
ever thought of like having those in like like creating them into not films, but like I don't know, like something that's a bit more visual. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I thought it'd
I'd
be
love it to go to TV. I
or
did send.
animation. That'd be cool.
Well, it's adult fiction, it's women's fiction, so I
Right,
don't
okay.
think it would work as an animation.
Mm.
But I mean, my dream would it for it to be a TV, like not a sitcom, but that kind of drama,
Yeah,
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 like
yeah.
a comedic drama. And I did send it to a TV producer, but I haven't heard back. I mean, it's quite a keep. But a lot of people who've read it have said, "Oh my God, this should be a series." Because
Yeah.
there's lots of my stuff's very character driven, so there's lots of um, opportunities for relationships to develop and friction, and that's I
Wow.
love that, people who are thrown together by circumstance and how their relationships develop and how they bounce off each other and how things happen between. So yeah, it would make a good any TV producers listening out there, it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be a fabulous
get in touch.
sitcom. It would be
That'd be
brilliant.
so cool. I'd love to see that. I think it'd be I don't know, like, do you know that sort of as people's artistic practices or creative practices go forward, they evolve, don't they? And I could just
Yeah,
see that like
yeah,
maybe becoming something a bit different, but
yeah,
and then it leans out to other audiences, doesn't it? I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I'd love it to go to telly.
Or
That would be
or
amazing.
even like a oh, what's it called? Like a what are those things called? Like a listen audiobook sort of
Yeah,
form.
I'm
That's
thinking about having it made into an
accessible.
audio book as well. Yeah. But that means either hiring someone to read it, but I think it would have to be me that read it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's time consuming and
Yeah.
trying to fit it in. But yeah, I definitely would like to have it as an audio book. I think that would be a really good shout.
That's
But
brilliant.
yeah, it's time to record it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely,
All the other
definitely.
things.
But
Yeah.
I suppose you're not stuck for like avenues for like for where it could lead to, if that makes
No,
sense.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, no, I mean these things they will start somewhere, don't they?
And the good thing is, I always find that when it is your work is very purposeful and it's coming from here, like you said previously, it literally just kind of, I don't know, it moves forward, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
becomes
let it
something,
evolve. Yeah, it kind of
doesn't
takes
have to
on
be
a life of its
forced.
own. No, no. So yeah, so there you go. This is the day when someone in the universe hears and says, I have to speak to Karen Stanley about 1 year at the Dog and Duck.
Yeah, that would be so cool. So as we come to the end of this week's episode, it's been such a great time chatting with you, Karen. My last question for you today is words of wisdom, words of encouragement that you'd like to leave us with today. Is there anything that you'd like to share?
I think for me, don't give up. I
Mm.
think what you put out, none of this is new, by the way, but for me, these have been my key learnings in
Yeah,
my own
yeah,
journey. Because I think a lot of it is about mindset, for me, especially getting your mindset right.
yeah,
If your mindset's wrong, you don't achieve. Someone said you will never exceed the expectation of yourself.
yeah.
Love that. So if you've got a high expectation of yourself, you'll do well. If you've got a low expectation of yourself, and that brings me to my other point. What you give out is what you get back. So if
Mm,
you give out positivity, if you give out resolve, resilience, tenacity, those things will come back to you. So I would say pursue your passions, don't give up, and radiate what you expect to receive. And I've got a lovely little thing. I have them everywhere. I've got one up here that says "Don't stop believing." I've got a little card here on my bookshelf that says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us."
I love it. I love that. Any little prompt cards and
Love them.
affirmations and things. Some people
Yeah.
don't believe in, but I really love that. It's really cool.
Whether you believe in it or not, just reading something positive can't fail to make you feel more positive. That's just
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I totally get that. But yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on today. And thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.